Hello YouTube, this is the S1BS operator coming at you with a brand new series. It will be a new association mode, but instead of a realism focus like my previous two series, this will be an expansion franchise with none other than the resurrected Seattle Supersonics. First off, I would like to make it clear that because this is current gen NBA 2K14, the rosters are not very accurate at all. I didn't do a fantasy draft, but in order to make this more of a challenge, players were shuffled around. Now, in order to set up this franchise, I used the Create a Team feature and picked out players from the 30 NBA teams. I also created 3 players that are the older, taller, and more skilled version of me and 2 of my friends. None of these players are rated higher than Amari's 82 overall, and no one has a potential rating above a B. In its history, teams were allowed to protect 8 players on their roster, and all of these guys were either not among the top 8 in ratings on their respective teams, or very overrated by the 2K system and possibly overpaid. Similar to my 2 previous association modes, most of the settings are the same with 12-minute quarters, Hall of Fame difficulty, and simulation gameplay sliders. I also customized the league, moving the OKC Thunder into the Southwest Division, the Seattle Supersonics into the Northwest Division, and the Memphis Grizzlies into the Central Division. The team removed from the league was the Milwaukee Bucks because since this is last year's model, they had the least amount of impact players on their team. Even so, some of their better players were sent to various teams around the league, giving me a team that was not very promising overall in terms of the present and the future. Unfortunately, the default staff for created teams was really crappy, but rather than fire my head coach and assistant coach right off the bat, I decided to replace my scouts and trainer with people at both A level and A potential. For this association, rookie draft classes were auto-generated because real-life rookies wouldn't even be sent to their correct teams, and the computer does a pretty good job of making rookies that do not have overblown overalls or potential ratings. After signing 2 additional players out of the free agency pool, the roster for the new look Sonics totals up to 14 players, 3 deep at each position. This gives us flexibility in case of injuries, and it also allows us to rotate through players if certain guys are struggling on this team. So to summarize the roster, we have Aaron Huang, DJ Augustine, and AJ Price. And then at shooting guard is Anthony Kirkendall, Jody Meeks, and Kim English. And then the veteran small forward will be the 6th man for this team, and the versatile Draymond Green from Golden State will be the starter at small forward for this team. Green is a lockdown defender, and he'll hopefully kind of be the anchor for us on that end of the floor. And then starting at power forward is the declining Amari Stoudemire, and he is backed up by John Henson, the only former Milwaukee Buck on this team, and Jarvis Vernado. And finally at the center position, there's William Luckett, Ian Mahimni, and Daniel Orton. So overall, this team is not overly talented, but then again, it's not like the worst roster in NBA 2K. And so thanks to some extraordinarily high contracts to balance the cheaper contracts of some of the scrubs on this team, we are currently $4.71 million under the cap. Then this offseason, more money frees up to put us at $12.28 million under. But the real fun begins once we are liberated by Amari Stoudemire's ridiculous contract in 2015, allowing us to pursue big names in that free agency class at a time we will hopefully be close to a playoff spot. However, as of right now, our roster is not very impressive, especially in the competitive Western Conference, and we will be adopting a more conservative play style focused on transition defense and securing the defensive boards. And so now, to close off this commentary, I just wanted to take the time to clarify the reasons for having certain features in this association mode. One was the addition of 3 creative players. This was mainly to just provide some creativity and some uniqueness to the series. I just took the time to create me and 2 of my friends, mainly for our own enjoyment and also to give a little bit away from the realism factor, considering that this is an old game and because this is not very up to date. So just sticking with the theme a little bit. And the other reason is for picking the selected players I wanted Amari Stoudemire because there is a cap floor in the NBA, and so his contract helps bring us to that cap floor. And considering that I didn't want very high overalls, and so thus we needed players with some high contracts. Now the reason for Caron Butler was because he was a guy that really didn't have an NBA team. Currently he plays for the Detroit Pistons, but again a veteran who, because I didn't just want a bunch of rookies, I wanted a couple of veterans as well. Draymond Green was the only player I felt that could possibly be within the top 8 on a roster, mainly because he's improved so much in Golden State. However, I thought that there was a case scenario, and he was one of my favorite players in the NBA, so that's the reason for adding him. And now the reason for not taking so many of the Milwaukee Bucks rosters, because while their team doesn't have that many franchise-changing talents, they do have a lot of players with a lot of potential. So even though they're the easiest team to substitute for, I felt that, and they're also one of the teams that could have moved to Seattle in the first place. Unfortunately, that didn't fall through for Seattle fans like myself, but they were a team that nonetheless needed to have players move. So I believe OJ Mayo got moved to Cleveland, and I believe Larry Sanders got moved to New York. So different moves like that make this series unique. I hope you stay tuned. This is the Sim Basketball Operator, and I want to thank you guys all for watching.